Tonight, Tas Racing's attempt to ban a leading harness trainer overturned again. Also tonight, rising council rates and added pressure for Tasmanians coping with cost of living pressures. Federal Greens leader Adam Bandt threatens to sue the Attorney-General. And a mate for life, or is the grass greener on the other side of the lake? Good evening, Guy Stayner with ABC News. For a second time, the Tasmanian Racing Appeals Board has overturned a ban on harness trainer Ben Yole attending Tasmanian racetracks. Mr Yole operates Tasmania's largest harness racing stable and is the subject of ongoing investigations into alleged race fixing. State political reporter Adam Langenberg joins us. Adam, what's happened now?
Guy, Ben Yole, Tim Yole, Mitch Ford and Nathan Ford were all handed 45-day warning off notices in April, which banned them from Tasmanian racetracks. Those bans lapsed on Monday, but Tas Racing had been poised to extend them until the end of the month. However, today the Tasmanian Racing Appeals Board found the bans were unwarranted and Tas Racing should have exercised more caution than it did. What it means is the four are all free to take part in harness racing meets. The next one is on Sunday in Launceston.
Adam, hasn't the Supreme Court already upheld the Tas Racing bans?
Yes, it has, Guy. It's the latest twist in a long-running tale. The warning off notices were issued in February after the Murray report was released. There was then an appeal to the Tasmanian Racing Appeals Board, which was successful. It headed to the Supreme Court, which ruled Tas Racing did have the power to issue those warning off notices. Those notices now have again been overturned by the Appeals Board. So we wait and see what Tas Racing does next, but also the findings of a government-appointed panel, which is investigating one race identified in the Murray report and also animal welfare allegations.
Adam Langenberg, thanks for the update. Cost of living pressures are already tough enough, but ratepayers across Tasmania could be in for more pain. Two councils in the south have already unveiled significant rate rises, and it's likely they won't be the last.
At Kingston Beach near Hobart, locals are enjoying a crisp winter's day. But the prospect of a significant hike in council rates has many feeling the pinch.
I'm on maternity leave at the moment. I've got a newborn, so the cost of living pressures have been very much felt in our family at the moment. It just adds another expense to the family household.
It's a pretty big hit for people who are already struggling. And I guess, like most of us, we're wondering what benefits we're going to get from that.
Kingborough Council is planning to increase its rates by 9.8%, which equates to almost $190 extra for the average ratepayer.
Council's the same as many people in our communities. We do feel the same pressures. So whether it be the cost of construction, the maintenance, the cost of materials on our various assets.
Down the road in the Huon Valley, costs are also on the rise. The local council is boosting rates by 7%, or about $100 extra per ratepayer.
We're on pensions, and they don't give us 7% every time they raise 7%.
For finances, your budget, that wouldn't be welcome.
Over the coming weeks, all 29 councils across Tasmania will unveil their budgets for the upcoming financial year. But demand for services combined with inflationary pressures means many will have to recoup their costs through higher rates.
We either continue to deliver the service as we do, or you have to reduce it if you don't put your rates up to be comparable with the cost.
Look, I think where there are opportunities for councils to share resources, if that has an impact on lowering their cost base, then that's a really sensible thing for them to do that.
Sharing the burden of a cost of living crisis. Jono Gibson, ABC News.
Palestinian authorities say at least 27 people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes targeting a school in central Gaza. Dozens more have been rushed to hospital as rescue teams search for survivors inside the Nusayrat refugee camp. Israeli authorities say 2 missiles were fired at the school, which it claims was being used as a Hamas compound. Hamas has denied the allegations and is calling the attack a horrific massacre. The IDF says it took steps before the airstrike to reduce harming civilians. Meanwhile, violence has erupted at Israel's annual Jerusalem Day march, with some Jewish Israelis attacking Palestinians and journalists. Middle East correspondent Alison Horn reports from the Old City in Jerusalem.
I'm standing at the entrance of the Muslim quarter in the Old City of Jerusalem. Usually this is an area that would be teeming with Palestinians, but today they've all been moved out of this area to make way for thousands of far-right Israelis and Jews to march through the streets, marking Israel's capture of East Jerusalem in 1967. Before the march even started, tensions were running high, with confrontations between Palestinians and Israelis inside the Muslim quarter. Journalists were abused, including myself and my crew. I was hit in the face. We were pushed and verbally abused by some young Israelis taking part. We've been hearing some Israelis chanting offensive slogans like "Death to Arabs" and songs about burning Arab villages down. This annual march, the Flag March, is seen as a celebration for Israelis and for some, their supremacy over this area and this land, which Palestinians want as the capital of a future Palestinian state. For Palestinians, this is an offensive provocation in the ongoing Israeli occupation of East Jerusalem, according to international law.
It's chaos, and Palestinians are getting beaten. And even me, they beat in the legs in front of the police.
What occupation? It's ours. The land of Israel was given to the people of Israel.
Rights groups in Israel had tried to block this particular section of the march going into the Muslim quarter here in the Old City, fearful it would further escalate hostilities between Israelis and Palestinians.
Greens leader Adam Bandt is threatening legal action against the Attorney-General over comments linking him to violence at pro-Palestinian rallies. At the same time, the Greens are accusing Labor of complicity in genocide and not supporting a ceasefire. Here's National Affairs editor Melissa Clark.
Labor MPs are frustrated by protests at their electorate offices, where there has been graffiti, property damage and physical confrontations.
You only need to look at the sort of things that Greens are posting on social media and their attendance at the blockades of MPs' offices.
Federal and state Greens MPs have encouraged people to protest.
So please come and join them outside Prime Minister Albanese's office.
But Labor has also accused the Greens of inciting violence.
You're not a party of peace if you're out there inciting aggression, violence, violent protests.
We backed the organisers' calls that there should not be vandalism or similar. We have been crystal clear on that.
Labor hasn't shown a specific incident where the Greens have directly encouraged violence. The Greens leader has threatened legal action against Attorney-General Mark Dreyfus for suggesting it.
My lawyers have written to the Attorney-General regarding what I consider to be defamatory statements.
The Greens have used social media to press the politics.
Labor is complicit and cowardly in this mission of genocide that Israel is conducting against Palestinians.
And make highly charged claims about complex issues.
They've said we're selling weapons to Israel when we're not. They say that we support genocide when plainly that is a completely offensive and distressing thing to say.
Even discussing a ceasefire becomes febrile.
We voted many months ago with over 150 other countries for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
What they've called for is a humanitarian ceasefire so that there's a pause so that people can be fed and then the bombing can start again.
As the war in Gaza drags on, the political debate here has deteriorated, raising concerns about the cues protesters take from it and the impact it has on community cohesion.
It's appearing like a signal, like a beacon going out, and it's whipping up a mob who are then protesting.
Hopes for de-escalation abroad and at home. Melissa Clark, ABC News, Canberra.
Accused murderer Greg Lynn has given evidence in his own double murder trial, telling the jury his actions in covering up the deaths of two elderly campers were despicable. But under intense questioning from prosecutors, the former Jetstar pilot has maintained he didn't murder the couple.
Taking his case into his own hands, the eyes of the Supreme Court were on Greg Lynn as the former pilot stepped into the witness box. Mr Lynn said the deaths of Carol Clay and Russell Hill at this campsite were not his fault. "I am innocent. I haven't killed anyone," Mr Lynn said. He claims Miss Clay was accidentally shot in the head as he struggled with Mr Hill over a gun. He says he then acted in self-defence as Mr Hill came at him again with a knife and inadvertently stabbed himself. Under questioning from his barrister Dermot Dan, Mr Lynn described it as a horrendous scene and said it was despicable that he then destroyed evidence and dumped the campers' bodies here under a pile of sticks. Loved ones of Russell Hill and Carol Clay watched on as Mr Lynn told the court, "All I can say to the families is that I'm very sorry for your suffering." But the prosecutor accused him of lying and murdering the retirees. "You murdered Mr Hill. What do you say?" "That's not true." "You took aim at Mrs Clay. You shot at her multiple times." "That's not true." Greg Lynn says the dispute started because he didn't like Mr Hill flying this drone, and Mr Hill also didn't want Mr Lynn hunting close to their campsite. Mr Lynn says things escalated when the 74-year-old stole his shotgun. "You could have just started up your vehicle. You could have simply driven away. He had stolen something of mine and I wanted to get it back." Despite some fiery questions, Greg Lynn remained composed on the stand. He only appeared shaken once. He took a deep breath and admitted he'd lied to his wife when he pretended that he had nothing to do with the camper's demise. Mr Lynn said his career as a pilot meant he could stay calm under pressure, but he says he panicked at the campsite and believed he'd wrongly be blamed. "Clearly things are worse for me now. It's a disaster, and it would have been a disaster if I had gone to the police." Mr Lynn has pleaded not guilty to murder, but he concedes he is guilty of destroying evidence by putting the campers' bodies in his trailer and returning to set fire to the remains. After 4 weeks, evidence in the trial has now finished. The jury could be sent out next week. Christian Silva, ABC News, Melbourne.
Vladimir Putin has held a rare face-to-face meeting with international news agencies in St Petersburg. The Russian president told journalists the deliveries of German tanks to Ukraine came as a shock. Germany recently joined the US in authorising Ukraine to hit some targets on Russian soil with the long-range weapons they supplied to Kyiv. Mr Putin said the use of those weapons would mark a dangerous step and could further undermine international security. He warned Russia could provide its own long-range missiles to others to strike Western targets.
For some reason, the West believes that Russia will never use nuclear weapons. If someone's actions threaten our sovereignty, we consider it possible for us to use all means at our disposal.
King Charles has led Britain's commemorations for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, one of the most pivotal moments in the Second World War. In France, as the sun rose over the beaches of Normandy, US Navy SEALs reenacted the events of 1944. The day pays tribute to the Allied soldiers who fought to drive out Nazi forces and liberate France.
A fitting backdrop for a moment of remembrance and reflection to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Sitting alongside royals and other dignitaries, veterans and their families, 99-year-old Roy Hayward is one of the few still alive. He lost his legs in the war.
I always considered myself one of the lucky ones that survived.
He and more than 150,000 other Allied troops, including thousands of Australians, set sail from Portsmouth in the largest ever military operation to liberate Nazi-occupied France, a major turning point of the Second World War.
Today we remember the bravery of those who crossed the sea to liberate Europe.
It is our duty to ensure that we and future generations do not forget their service and their sacrifice.
After the formalities, the royals charmed the crowd.
So you must be 100.
I'm 99.
is.
It's amazing your hearing is so good.
Prince William is joining King Charles, with the pair travelling to France for more D-Day commemorations. It will be the King's first overseas visit since the palace revealed his cancer diagnosis in February. US President Joe Biden is also in France on a trip designed to underscore his commitment to US allies in Europe. In Normandy, paratroopers recreate the start of the D-Day landings.
My thoughts today are with those who fell on both sides.
Freedom at the cost of so many lives. Rani Hayman, ABC News, London.
After years of technical problems, Boeing has successfully launched 2 NASA astronauts into space for the first time. The company's Starliner spacecraft finally blasted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida after the first 2 launch attempts were called off. The astronauts will spend just over a week at the International Space Station before touching back down in a remote desert location in the US. Boeing plans for Starliner to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX as another taxi service for NASA. Having a regular break could be the secret to a successful monogamous relationship. Swans are considered among the most monogamous animals in the world, but new research has discovered some swan couples take separate holidays.
For almost 2 decades, Melbourne University academics have been catching, tagging.
Do we get all 5? Fantastic.
And safely releasing the black swans of Albert Park Lake.
Okay, yep.
Swans are thought to be lifelong lovers, and researchers have found there's truth to the fairy tale. But
divorce is not uncommon, so about 10% of the swan pairs don't last. So we've got a pair that has been around and together since the beginning of the study, 18 years. Pretty good innings, and others that get together for a month or 2 and then decide, no, this is not for them.
Plus, cheating happens.
1 in 6 of the cygnets on the lake are fathered by a male from outside the pair bond.
And new movement tracking collars have now discovered that successful monogamous couples are more synchronised, doing the same thing at the same time. However, it doesn't get better over time.
Being together for a longer time doesn't actually make you more synchronous than partners that have been together for a year or 2.
And while some long-term pairs stay synchronised all year round, others fly away for a holiday.
These breaks would probably range for, on average, about 3 months over the non-breeding period before they would come back together before this sort of time of year now.
Researchers say they'll now focus on finding out why this happens. But is there a lesson in love for humans?
I'm always a bit wary of extrapolating to humans in terms of animal behaviour, but I think they do remind us of what it's like to be in a monogamous human relationship, and especially I think this finding of birds spending time together and time apart is a sort of a reminder of that.
Iskander Razak, ABC News, Melbourne.
For many young people, retail offers plenty of opportunities, including their first experience of work. But a new report shows it's often not a good one, with up to half of women and a quarter of men experiencing sexual harassment in the industry.
A few years ago, Hannah was excited to start an after-school job at a major retail chain, but she soon saw a dark side to the industry.
Everyone I knew that worked there had an experience with being sexually harassed at work, from anything as small as just awkward comments that customers would make, or as severe as being stalked by customers and having some really scary experiences like that.
Hannah's experience at her former job is all too common, as new research from Sydney University confirms.
Retail workers describe sexual harassment as basically being part of the job, and that's the title of our report.
The findings couldn't be more timely, with recent allegations emerging at Country Road.
Sexual harassment is pervasive and it spreads across the different segments of retail.
The retail industry is the third largest employer in Australia. More than half the workforce are women, many of them teenagers. Researchers say this makes them more vulnerable to sexual harassment, and they're calling on employers to do more to protect their workers.
Clearly, this report is showing that they don't feel safe at work.
The boss of the Australian Retailers Association says in the case of harassment, the buck stops with management.
The CEO needs to make sure they've got confidence in their policies, their procedures. The culture becomes really important as well. So there's a culture of reporting.
Young retail worker Hannah also wants to see better training and procedures to report harassment.
I can't remember any training that I did that went through how to deal with customers that are making you feel uncomfortable.
Protections needed to make work safe. Nadia Daly, ABC News.
The local share market performed strongly today after Wall Street had its biggest gain in 4 months. Here's Alan Kohler.
The main New York index went up 1.2% and the Nasdaq 2%. But it was all about Nvidia, the artificial intelligence semiconductor business that surged past $3 trillion in market value last night, overtaking Apple to take second place to Microsoft on the world's most valuable company podium. That's $4.5 trillion Australian dollars, which is twice the total value of all companies listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, which went up 0.7% today. And the big news on our market was that Commonwealth Bank hit a new record high of $124.85. But before we do high fives, CBA's value is less than 1/20th of Nvidia's. And here's a chart of those two share prices over the past 5 years, which is one of those pictures that's worth 1,000 words. Today's economic data release was housing lending in April, which accelerated to 4.8% monthly growth from 3.8%. Loan sizes have hit record highs of $750,000 for owner-occupiers and more than $500,000 for first home buyers. Now, repayments on that are about $3,300 a month, or 45% of average weekly earnings, which is 50% above what's regarded as affordable. Nickel fell 4% on commodity markets, while the Aussie dollar stayed at 66.6 US cents. Now, you may be interested to know that the average global temperature has hit 1.63 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial times. So the Paris target of 1.5 degrees has come and gone. It might fall back below 1.5. After all, there is a fair bit of volatility there, but not that much. And the trend, well, you can see the trend, and that's finance.
Alex de Minaur's best run at a French Open is over after a straight sets loss to German Alexander Zverev in the quarterfinals. The Australian was unable to convert his chances during the 3-hour match, but said he left his heart on the court.
Big night for Australian tennis.
The 25-year-old
wasn't good. That takes a lot of momentum and confidence onto the grass.
His innocence.
Ben for just the third time in their AFL careers. They'll join the Mackay brothers as siblings going head-to-head this weekend.
Before training, there was doubt.
If he gets through pain-free, he'll play.
But after a smooth session, Max King looks set to face the 8th-place Suns on Saturday, meaning the 23-year-old faces off against his brother as the Suns search for their first away win of 2024.
We don't want to be a victim to the Gold Coast Suns. We want to fight the fight, and we want them to be in a battle with us.
Ben and Harry Mackay were an almost certainty to play on each other in front of a packed MCG on Sunday, but both Essendon and Carlton don't want the novelty to overshadow an important game between the two rivals.
Largely, it'll most likely depend on where on the ground Harry sets up for the majority of it, because we certainly like Ben in certain spots.
Brisbane channelled the Maroons at training today as they come out of their mid-season bye in 13th, 10 points outside the 8 ahead of their game against the Western Bulldogs.
Yes, we are in a precarious position, we know that, but thinking about that's not going to help us win games of footy. It's just focusing in on what we need to do.
Similar optimism can be found at Arden Street as North Melbourne sets up for the second half of the year. Steadfast they'll soon get their first win this season, perhaps this week against the 16th placed West Coast.
We know where we're going, we know where our vision is, it's hard work.
And only getting harder with matches against multiple finals contenders in the next 3 rounds. Fraser Fyfe, ABC News.
Australia has won its first match at the Men's T20 World Cup. The squad defeated Oman by 39 runs in Barbados, with all-rounder Marcus Stoinis starring. Batting first, the Aussies lost early wickets to some brilliant fielding, but Stoinis saved the innings, hitting 4 sixes in 1 over as he made 67 off just 36 balls. He followed it up with 3 wickets, which included a boundary catch by Tim David, as Oman fell 40 runs short of victory. Australia is seeking to become the first country to hold World Championships in all 3 cricket formats.
It is a nice start, I think. Maybe a few cobwebs for us, but we're better for the run. We got the win. Some boys spent some time in the middle and everyone got a bowl.
Weeks after thinking his Olympic dream was over, Australian marathon runner Liam Adams has earned a late call-up to the Paris Games. Adams was ranked inside the top 80 eligible runners, but initially missed out due to the addition of athletes from smaller countries taking up universality places. But World Athletics has now included the athletes who qualified on rankings, sending Adams to his third Games. He'll join fellow Australians Brett Robinson and Pat Tiernan in the men's marathon.
It's really played on my mind a lot, so it's been really tough to train in that. And when I got the news, it was just a burst of energy. I was just so excited.
An exhibition of artworks by current and former Risdon prison inmates has been launched on Hobart's waterfront. The theme for this year's Prison Fellowship Australia exhibition is Light Shining Out of Darkness. The program aims to help prisoners process their experience and feelings in a productive way, with funds raised from the artwork sold going to inmates to help restart their lives when they're released.
We've seen people really increase their skill and their ability in art making whilst they're in prison and doing time. And what a great thing for them to be able to do is to come out with a profession or something that they love to do.
To the weather, and this sunrise over Coles Beach in Devonport is from Jem Murfitt. Now, I wasn't sure if this was a Norfolk Island pine or a Norfolk Island pine. My director said it's a tree. Never helpful. Cooler about the east again today, with Swansea reaching 13 degrees, St Helens 15, Hobart, Launceston and the northwest all had 16, and King Island topped the state with 17 degrees. There was just some drizzle about the far south, nothing in the population centres. In the satellite image you can see cloud rotating anti-clockwise around Tasmania, a sure sign that we're in the middle of a high, and will remain there tomorrow as a large cold front approaches from the west. It's expected Saturday. Across the country tomorrow, more rain for Sydney and Perth. Fine in the other capitals, 17 degrees in Melbourne and Adelaide, 20 for Brisbane. Back home, there'll be isolated showers about the east and Bass Strait Islands. Should be fine elsewhere after Morning Valley fog and frost inland. 14 degrees in Queenstown, Burnie and Devonport. Launceston 15 after a low of just 1. 14 in St Helens and Orford, 13 in Swansea and Ouse. And Hobart's heading for a top of 14 degrees after an overnight low of 7. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 25 to 8. On coastal waters there'll be light southeasterly winds of 10 to 15 knots about the north and northeast that will be more variable elsewhere. There are no warnings. Saturday should be fine until showers develop about the west during the day with possible morning fog and frost inland. Sunday showers statewide, although less likely about the north coast. And it looks like things will be pretty cool and showery next week. And that's it for this evening's program. Up next is Sarah Ferguson with 7:30. See you tomorrow.